Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Optimal Health Show. We got a fantastic show for you today. We have the one and the only Dave Asprey, also known as the Biohacker. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about his brand new book, The Better Baby Book. Hopefully you'll take away brand new information on how to optimize your hormones, optimizing your health, and giving your new child and your new baby the best future possible. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Optimal Health Show. We got a fantastic show for you today. We have the one, the only, Dave Asprey. How are you doing, brother?
Really good, Amir. How are you?
I'm good, enjoying the last bit of winter over here in Toronto, Canada. Can't wait till summertime. Tell me, recently I just seen a little post that you're doing a little biohacking in the desert. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Well, I found over time that the original biohackers were the old shamans and Buddhists and guys like that, yogis. They've been looking at the human body without tech for a long time. So I find that there's a lot you can bring from those traditions into the quantifiable realm and make it repeatable. So I spent the last week with Alberto Villoldo, who is a shaman and a published author. In fact, his most recent book was with a neuroscientist. And it's really interesting because half of what he talked about was mitochondrial function and shamanic states. Like, I'm all about peak performance. There's a body of knowledge there that I'm exploring.
Fantastic. Well, I know you've mentioned this before, but can you tell us, what triggered your this journey into optimizing yourself?
In my mid-20s, I bought disability insurance. I just realized I couldn't really go through the whole day, and I was so tired. I weighed 300 pounds. I worked out 6 days a week, an hour and a half a day. Couldn't lose the weight, ate low calories, low fat, all that kind of stuff. And then my doctor told me vitamin C would kill me. And I looked at him and I said, "What about Linus Pauling?"
Yeah.
He looks at me right in the eye and goes, "Linus who?" And I'm like, "You're fired." I said those words, "You're fired." And I walked out of his office. I never paid that bill. They tried to collect for months. And for the next 4 years, I just did it all myself. Fortunately, my company had gone public. I made $6 million when I was 26. And I spent about $250,000 over the course of the next X number of years working on my own stuff and building core principles that we could use to basically upgrade human performance. It wasn't about just being well. Everyone wants to be well. It's about wanting to kick ass.
Yeah. That's amazing. Myself, I had the same hunger and drive. I can't say really I made $6 million when I was 24, but that's a whole different story. But the reason I have you here today is we're talking about your new book, The Better Baby Book, right?
Yes.
What prompted you to write this book?
I looked at where my body of knowledge would have the greatest impact. And because I'm fundamentally the laziest person which means if I'm going to expend even this much effort, I want to have this much results for it. Yeah. So if I can take someone who's 30 or 40 years old and I can upgrade their performance, that's great. But it takes a lot more energy, a lot more work to make that happen. The time when we have the most influence for the longest period of time with the least amount of work is actually before conception and during the time in the womb. So I created a program along with my wife that we used for our own 2 kids. When she was 35, she was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, and told by her OBGYN that she probably wouldn't be able to have kids. We had our first child at 39 and our second at 42 with 0 fertility treatments other than natural treatments. And my wife Lana runs a fertility consulting practice globally over Skype where she helps couples conceive without having to go down the hormone IVF kind of route, where they just look at nutrition and toxins and stress, the 3 big pillars in our book. And we did this because we wanted our kids to be very healthy. We did not want them to have autism. That was a concern because I had all the symptoms of Asperger's syndrome until my mid-20s when I hacked my body. And also because it tends to run in my family, and because later in life, for both of us, the odds go up.
That's fantastic. When I was actually reading your book lately, I was pulling out questions and yeah, that's right. And I came across one really pivotal key of knowledge in the book is, and because what really triggered this question to me is I've read it before in many other books, but these books are like talking about ancient cultures and ancient civilizations. And everyone was talking about the importance of detoxifying before pregnancy. Can you expand on that a little bit for us?
Detox has taken on a new meaning in the West. Detox sort of means the Betty Ford clinic for half of people. Oh, I stopped drinking. But what we're talking about here, and we cover this in the book, are the different types of toxins that affect, well, conception and health in the womb. These same toxins also affect human performance, by the way. So there's a nice map over with the Bulletproof Executive work that I do. But for women, the toxins are just much more impactful during pregnancy. So one type of toxin is exotoxin. These are toxins you take into your body. So these would be pesticides, naturally occurring pesticides that come in whole grains and things like that, self-defense mechanisms for plants, and there's an enormous impact on pregnancy from what you eat. Plus, there's all the stuff that you get on your skin and stuff you breathe, so that class of toxins, plus endotoxins, which are internally generated toxins from normal metabolism or from unhealthy metabolism. So we go through in the book and we categorize these things, tell you where to find them and what to do to minimize their impact on you. And when you do that, we're talking about parts per million shifts of things here, but you get this huge impact. One impact we had, 0 stretch marks, 0 morning sickness for 2 pregnancies around age 40. Almost unheard of. So you get that just feeling really good sort of state that comes along with having lower toxins. Sorry, I still got desert lung.
One great thing, though, you were talking about in the book, and I know you mentioned this previously in your work, is people need to be aware of, for example, even the foods they're eating, the mycotoxins that affect their body, right?
Or mycotoxins.
Mycotoxins, yeah.
Yeah, it turns out this is something that animal husbandry people, ranchers, know, and traditional cultures know as well. Great example, kind of a lead-in. If you were to go to an old American Indian medicine woman and you had problems with fertility or problems with your cycle as a woman, they'd give you a pinch of corn smut. And what the heck is corn smut? It's a little black mold that grows on corn. Well, it turns out that these molds make profoundly strong synthetic estrogens. So if you're eating dried corn products, something like 90+% of dried corn has fusarium in it, which is a mold that can affect your pregnancy. Now you might say, oh, Dave's an alarmist, but here's the deal. People who raise pigs for a living, the guys who make billions of dollars raising pigs, they know about this because when they put moldy corn in the food, what happens? Their production of pigs go down. They lose more pigs during pregnancy. So they control this as a variable in their production process. Oh, but for us people, we don't have to do that. Like in the world I live in, if it's good enough for the pigs, it's probably good enough for me.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next thing I want to talk about is, once you're avoiding all these toxins and you're detoxifying, we're living in like really stressed out times right now. I mean, people are working 12 hours a day, 60 hours a week, and they're just strung up, burning their candles on both ends. I would like people to realize that, stress does actually affect your child's health, right?
It affects your health and especially your baby's health.
Yeah.
And one of the core tenets of the book, the whole reason you can do what we're talking about having kids with bigger brains, more intelligence, and lifelong health, and even healthier kids, you can do that specifically because of epigenetics. We didn't know about it 20 years ago. But now we've suddenly, with the explosion of genetic tests, figured out that, oh, gee, the environment affects which genes are expressed. And what are the big signals? Well, what you eat, the temperature and light and things like that, and your environment itself, the quality of your sleep, and your internal stress. So what you think about up here changes the expression of the genes in your body, and some of those are inheritable by your kids. If a baby's in the womb and the mother is fearful, the baby picks up on the fear. And there's ways that it happens, we outline in the book, through cortisol. But there may even be other ways, just, electrically, like there are changes in the body that you can measure on the skin that come with stress. And one of the biggest signals that you can get is the spacing between heartbeats, which is called heart rate variability. In my executive coaching practice, and certainly in my own life, I use a device that lets me learn how to change the spacing between my heartbeats. When you do that, what happens is you radically lower stress without having to do all the stuff that normally comes with meditation. So it's really easy to go to a pregnant woman. By definition, if you're pregnant, there's going to be some stress because, like, I have this thing. It's the first time it's in my stomach.
Yeah.
Like, will it be okay? Will it not be okay? Will it have all its fingers and toes and all the worry that normally healthy women have? Well, you say, don't worry. All that does is make you go, oh my God, I'm worrying too much. If I worry too much, what will happen? Right? And it
Yeah.
just creates
Yeah.
a cycle. It doesn't work. So, what we recommend in the book is some breathing exercises where you basically say, hey, hook this little sensor up to your ear, and instead of just trying to not worry, you can actually just do whatever you have to do to make the light on the device turn green. And when you do that, you turned off your worry, you turned off your fight or flight. And when you do that, your baby will get better genes. You want your baby to be in expansion mode, in thrive mode. If the baby picks up on a lot of fear from mom or doesn't get the right nutrients or has lots of toxins, it goes into protection mode and it actually changes genetic expression to be in a hostile world. You want a baby who thinks the world is like full of yummy, healthy, amazingly nutritious foods with no stress. So it optimizes for curiosity and neurological function instead of optimizing for starvation.
Yeah, you said it eloquently that people need to realize that your actions, whatever you do, carries on to your newborn baby. So if you're more stressed out, like you're mentioning, high cortisol, or maybe you're going to have issues with your adrenal glands, your baby might have some problems coming out of your womb that it might be stressed out too. So controlling your environment, controlling your stress, and obviously you're mentioning, giving it love, proper environment is crucial for having a healthy baby.
It's funny. In one of the chapters in the book, we talk about, what are babies made out of? And like looking at like, what do you need to eat in order to make a baby?
Yep.
And hint, it's not granola. But there's very little granola in your baby.
Yeah.
But what happens there in that chapter is we write the very first ingredient in a healthy baby is love. Like you can have kids born under the most adverse circumstances with moms who are impoverished without enough food, chronic illness, all kinds of stuff, and the kids come out healthy and strong. And love and centeredness is a big part of that. I can tell you though that in those same situations with better nutrition and better support and the detox protocols we're talking about, those same perfectly healthy children could be even more healthy.
Definitely.
And we're trying to affect the future of humanity multi-generationally because I know from the science that what you do now before your child is born will absolutely affect your grandkids. So all you have to do is get it right for 1 year, the 9 months in the womb plus birth and the 3 months before you get pregnant, and you're setting your whole line, your whole genetic line on a new course. Those are big claims, but they're legitimate, they're real.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And actually, you touched a key note over there. You're talking about nutrition, and we're living in a society right now, we're eating the sad diet or processed food, whatever you want to call it, and it's destroying our epigenetics, our baby's epigenetics. Can you expand on the fact that right now in our society, we're really fat phobic for certain fats, right? But people
Yep.
need to realize that healthy fats such as omega-3, which pretty much makes 60% of the woman's body, is essential for having a healthy baby.
It's pretty amazing. It turns out too much omega-3, if that's all you're eating, is also not particularly healthy.
Yeah.
We need to make this thing, we like to say cell membrane in the body, but we don't actually have cell membranes the way you think of like a Gore-Tex membrane or something. What we have is called a lipid bilayer. And what's going on there is you've got droplets of fat that are basically pushing against water. They don't like water. So you get these organized droplets of fat around a cell. When you get this ratio right, you need a good amount of saturated fat because saturated fat, not trans fats, but just saturated fat like coconut oil and grass-fed butter type of fats, makes for a stable cell wall that doesn't oxidize easily. And then you need enough omega-3 to allow flexibility so you can express receptors through the cell walls. If you have that combination, you're set up very well. If instead you put like canola oil and hydrogenated fat and corn oil and all the other junk seed oils that they're trying to sell today, then you get lots of oxidation, you get unstable fats and unstable membranes, and you also don't make hormones very well. That's a problem because when you're pregnant, you damn well better be building your hormones the right way because you need those.
Yeah, at the end of the day, when people are consuming, like you mentioned, cottonseed oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, I tell everybody more or less that stuff's like oxidizing you but turning you into rust. So you're mentioning a lipid bilayer that has to be very fluid and flexible like water, right? Gelatinous. And all these industrial oils they're consuming, it literally makes them into cement. So how can your cells communicate if they're like cement? They can't.
Think of it like this. You have one tiny little pill. It's, fish oil or krill oil, and it has measurable impact on your how sticky your blood is, on your clotting, and it's anti-inflammatory. A tiny little, less than a half a teaspoon of oil. So if that can have that impact on you, couldn't a teaspoon of hydrogenated cottonseed oil have the same but negative effect on you?
Yeah.
The bottom line is that oils are very powerful. I eat a ton of fat and a ton of oil, but it's not like you can say fat is good or fat is bad. Fat barely exists. You have saturated and non-saturated fatty acids. Each fatty acid has a different effect on the body. So in our book, instead of saying eat fat, don't eat fat, which is a meaningless distinction,
Yeah.
we're very careful to say these fats are better for you than these fats. Eat a lot of these, eat some of these, eat none of these. And so it's a spectrum. And if you don't really have a good choice because you're at a restaurant, well, at least pick the one that's best on the spectrum. So trying to be perfect when you're pregnant only raises stress. Like, don't be perfect. Just if you have to make a decision between A and B, we'll tell you which one is easier. And it's all on an infographic, a downloadable one-page infographic. You put it on your fridge, and then you can eat healthier without trying to be perfect.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I was just taking a little quote from your book over here. I was reading, you stated the brain is only 1% carbs. And I know right now in our society, we're very I don't like the word carbs, but pro sugar consumers. Everything we consume in every meal has sugar. When people need to realize that sugar destroys the health of your baby. Can you please explain that to us more?
The reasons to not eat sugar are profound. One of the things that I really drives me nuts when I read some of these modern books about healthy pregnancy diets, it just makes me want to pull my hair out. That's why it's so short, so I can't get a grip on it. Because like, oh, here for breakfast, have some soy go-gurt or something,
Yeah.
and it's full of sugar, and then put a bunch of fruit on it. And fruit is basically a bag of water with fructose, which is one of the more harmful sugars, and a little bit of vitamins and fiber. There are much better sources of vitamins without all the fructose. Because when you eat fructose, it causes tissue aging, something called the advanced glycation end product creation. And it also can basically contribute to triglycerides and fatty acid in the liver. Sorry, fatty liver disease. So we recommend that pregnant women, you can enjoy fruit, but enjoy the high nutrition, low sugar fruits, things like blueberries, raspberries, and all. But here's a dirty secret that no one tells you about. When you go to the giant box stores and buy the cheap frozen berries, the reason they're cheap is that food producers grade the quality of things based on how spoiled it is. If you buy the low-cost frozen berries, you're getting the moldy berries. They didn't make the grade to be the high-cost ones. So unfortunately whatever benefit you might get from eating raspberries is going to be more than destroyed if you're eating moldy raspberries. Yeah. So I'm to the point where I'm very cautious when I buy frozen berries because they're usually not that fresh when they're frozen. So you really need to be aware of that, and they're not adequately tested. So that whole spectrum of, do you really need a lot of fruit? No, you don't. Eat a piece or two of fruit a day if it makes you happy. Eat it more towards the evening, but focus on fat as a primary nutrient and very high quality protein, because it turns out extra protein when you're pregnant, more than you need, especially low quality protein, is actually bad for you too. It puts a stress on the liver and the kidneys. You want your body to spend all of its resources taking care of baby and taking care of itself and growing and expanding, not fighting off whatever the heck it is you just put in your mouth.
Yeah, but and I would even, you're mentioning the fruits and everything. Yeah, that's one problem. But I even noticed an even bigger problem is people are consuming, sandwiches, pasta, lasagnas.
Oh yeah, there's sugar in everything.
That's huge, and people need to realize that this spike of insulin in your body constantly, 24/7, you're consuming sugar. It actually inhibits the development of your baby's brain. Right?
Oh yeah. In fact, we have a blog post. Why sugar makes you stupid. There's studies that show sugar lowers intelligence. And what can you do about that? Well, the answer is don't consume sugar unconsciously. Which means if you have to read the label, that's probably a problem already, because that means that you didn't make it. And you might say, I don't have time to make food, but that's maybe because you don't know how.
Yeah.
And we have some recipes in the Better Baby book. The Upgraded Chef book is the same way. But the most common thing that we ate during Lana's pregnancies was one of the recipes from the Upgraded Chef. And it's steamed vegetables, a lot of them. It doesn't really matter which vegetable as long as you're not eating some of the higher toxin ones, or at least eating a lot of them. You put it in a blender, a really good blender, add grass-fed butter, add MCT oil, which is a type of oil that basically works for brain function better than any of the others in terms of increasing brain metabolism. And maybe some coconut oil, whatever spices you want, and you hit blend. And what comes out of it is a really creamy soup that's amazing. We'd add a couple tablespoons of our hydrolyzed collagen to it. Collagen is the main building block protein for your connective tissues, for your bones. So that is an amazing meal, and it takes 10 minutes to make. And if you make it ahead of time, you can have it for breakfast and lunch if you want. You can have it for dinner. So it's a convenient food. It doesn't take any more time than driving to McDonald's, and it uses one pot and a blender. Like, it's not hard to make.
Now, in today's society, all the burden is actually put on the woman, right? So she has to bear the child. She has to walk around, like you're mentioning, this brand new being inside of her, right? She's giving all her nutrients towards the new baby. And men, obviously, they think they have nothing to do with anything. Yeah, all I have to do is just do my deed in bed and I'm done. But that's not the case, is it?
Not particularly.
Yeah.
It turns out that whether dad has been drinking in the week before conception has a measurable result on birth defects. So it turns out for women, they've basically, the health of the woman has a large impact during the pregnancy itself, but the eggs are essentially preformed. They come out, they have some maturing they do, but they're already in her. With guys, we're making new sperm all the time, like basically every 3 or 4 days. So that means what you did in the last 3 or 4 days, including what mycotoxins you consumed, how much alcohol did you have, what drugs were you on, how tired were you smoking? What was your vitamin level like? All of those things affect the quality of your swimmers. So if you're basically shooting kind of half-dead little swimmers, well, what's going to happen? You're going to end up starting out a life with a less optimal state. So what you want to do is you want to get your health into peak health, and you want to get your significant other's health into a peak state. And when you have a baby under those circumstances, the entire life of that baby can be different. So the unconscious, do the deed and walk away sort of thing doesn't work. And that's not even counting, in homes where, there isn't adequate support for the mom, the stress levels go up. So it's really important as guys that we figure out how to make our women feel safe and supported, because if the woman feels safe and supported, she'll have healthier children. And that's important for you as a guy too. It's amazing. Your own health and your own emotional attitude during what is an amazing but also a stressful time is terribly important, and I don't think enough people pay credence to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think men need to take a lot of more responsibility, like you're mentioning, in their own health, to increase motility of their sperm, to increase hormonal, or I should say epigenetic profiling of their sperm. It's not just, the woman can be eating the greatest food, but the man has to be there doing exactly the same thing. And like you mentioned, supporting her, comforting her, and creating a synergistic bond. It's a joining journey. It's not one person's journey. It's two persons' journey.
I'll tell you, I caught both my kids, and we had them at home. So literally, like, I delivered them. We had a midwife. It helps we had an emergency room doctor in the room too, because my wife is an emergency room doctor. So we had adequate support and help there, but it really came down to being there the entire time. It was really important.
Yeah. If you had to, I basically want to come to the end of our interview now. If you had to give one optimal health tip to a new parents, so father and mother, what would it be? Like, what's that one thing, if they're going to change, that one pivotal thing they have to do to just to help their newborn baby just a little bit more?
To help a newborn baby, especially around the time of birth and all, assuming that your baby's already been delivered, let the woman heal. It's going to take about 6 weeks for what's essentially a wound this big inside of her where the placenta was attached to heal. It is incredibly stressful on the adrenals. Lots of fat, lots of rest. And that can go so far. I know women who are like, I'm going to start exercising 2 weeks after. And you know what? Your adrenal glands are not ready for that. Like, be kind to yourself, take it
Yeah.
easy. And it's very hard to do that because you just got wired for not sleeping.
Yeah.
That's what, mommy brain does to you.
Yeah.
So, self-kindness is one of the best things you can do. And for God's sake, if it's anywhere within your budget, bring a relative out or have a doula or someone come and help just for the first 2 months because it'll transform your recovery.
I couldn't agree more, though. That's a fantastic tip. Dave, I want to thank you for taking your time out from your busy schedule. It was fantastic interviewing. Everybody out there, you know what to do. Go get Dave's new book and make sure that your baby has a bright future. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Amir. Check out betterbaby.com for more info on this.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dave Asprey. If you want to stay up to date with all my episodes, with my YouTube channel, with everything I'm doing, don't forget to subscribe to the Optimal Tribe. All you got to do is enter your name and email and you receive weekly updates. Catch you next week.